Hello and welcome to another edition of Taekwondo Life Magazine Live. My name is Marc Zirogiannis. I'm your host. I'm a third Dan Black Belt and I'm the editor-in-chief of Taekwondo Life Magazine. Taekwondo Life Magazine is a member of the Believe Sports Network. Believe is the #1 sports and podcast network for professionals. Do you believe? Since we started the magazine back in 2016 and since we started the podcast in 2019, we have made it a point to highlight and to showcase prominent women in Taekwondo and the martial arts. It's always been a theme of ours. We've always talked about the evolving nature of the martial arts and how it transcends race and religion and gender. And we've tried to really showcase the best of the best. Today's guest is a perfect example of that. She has been on our radar for some time. Several years ago in our print magazine, we did a feature called 10 Women to Watch, I think in 2018 and beyond, and she was listed as one of them, and that is Mrs. Jessica Fabus Cheng. She is featured today due to her recent coronation as Miss New York America. She will be going on in November to compete in the Mrs. America pageant, and we support her in that. But more importantly, she is a woman who is vocal and a charitable fundraiser. She is a healthcare worker and has worked tirelessly throughout this coronavirus pandemic. And she is a Taekwondo practitioner, and she was a forerunner and a cutting edge Sports Poomsae competitor and national team member. And now that she is in the midst of this whirlwind tour for Mrs. America, and she is a new mom, we know that she will be returning to the dojang sometime soon, and sooner rather than later, hopefully, and we will be speaking to her about that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoy hearing from her as much as I enjoyed talking to her. And this episode is presented by Bet Online. Bet Online are your online sportsbook experts. This episode is premiering in August. We are just weeks away from the preseason snaps in football. For me, the most exciting time of year for sports. I know you'll be able to bet on all of those things. We are coming to the end of the baseball season, and before you know it, it will be hockey and basketball. But Bet Online doesn't just cover those. It covers everything from MMA, the Bellator fights, PFL, the entire Olympics, just about anything that you can bet on. The award season, Academy Awards, you could find at betonline.ag. Don't forget, when you go to Bet Online on your mobile device or website, that you'll get your 50% welcome deposit when you sign up as a result of this program. So go to betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. I look forward to seeing you on the mat. I look forward to seeing Jessica Fabus Cheng on the mat, working with her on Sports Poomsae, hearing what she has learned in her journey towards November and hopefully a coronation on behalf of herself, her family, the state of New York, and the Taekwondo community as she makes the move to become Mrs. America. Thank you and goodbye. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
How are you? How's everything? Good. So wonderful to see you.
Good to see you too. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing it. Congratulations. I haven't had a chance to speak to you since your wonderful accomplishments. So
thank you so much.
Great. So this morning, and I mentioned to you, we're recording. We're not live. I'll let you know, probably going to be either Monday or the following Monday, but we are speaking this morning to Jessica Fabus Cheng. Did I say that right?
Yes, Fabus Cheng.
Oh, good. I am always sensitive because of my name that I get it right.
Yeah.
We're speaking to Jessica Fabus Cheng, who has just earned the great accomplishment of 2021's, is it Miss New York American?
Mrs. New York, America.
I apologize, of course.
No, that's okay.
Mrs.
My hair's
America or American?
America.
America.
Yes.
Congratulations on that. She is we're going to talk a little bit about that in the limited time that we have. She is a Taekwondo Black Belt, a USA Taekwondo national or former national team member. She is a Poomsae champion. And probably most notable is that throughout this incredibly crazy time that she has been a healthcare worker.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a great time. It's an exciting time for women related to Taekwondo. As you know, yesterday morning, our time, we had Anna Zolotic win the gold medal for the United States in Team USA, which was very exciting. And within the last hour to 2 hours, she didn't medal, but Paige McPherson ended up making in her third Olympic showing. She made it to the bronze medal round. So and she's a fantastic competitor. So it's a great time for women and in the martial arts and related to the martial arts.
Yes, it absolutely is. I'm really glad that you mentioned that about the gold medal, because not only is it the first gold medal for Team USA in Taekwondo, but it's a female that did that. And
it's incredible.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And of course, we would accept a male as well. But I just think, it's nice, that girl power, just so many advancements for women in sports. And I just think it's absolutely, I was like speechless when I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing.
I was excited. I didn't expect to be as emotional as I was. I was really emotional, especially because, it's somebody who is young, but has such a promising future and has really worked hard. She's really, really been a great role model for somebody who has been willing to sacrifice in order to be able to accomplish her dream. And it's exciting. It's the world stage, especially after the Olympics being postponed for a year and how much havoc that wreaked on so many of the athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally understand if you've been training to peak at a certain point and then, this whole thing happened and it was unsure for a while. So it wasn't even like a hard stop right away. It was like, is this going to happen? Should I keep training? And then, of course it was pushed back, but that's mental toughness right there.
Absolutely. And you've had a lot going on. I mean, during this time, I know that you've been doing the pageant circuit. You've had the dealing with the pandemic and being a healthcare worker. You're a relatively new mom, if that's correct, right?
Yes.
Congratulations on that. So tell me a little bit about you. Let's roll it back, take a little journey, a little walk with you. So tell me a little bit about your Taekwondo career. How I know you're most recently, I know you're not in Brooklyn now, but you're most recently a New York, Brooklyn native. How'd you get started in Taekwondo, and tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I actually love this story because I started Taekwondo by accident, actually. I did not know what it was going into it. What happened was I was actually staying in a hotel in Chicago. This is back in 2008 or 2009. And long story short, I remember waking up in the middle of the night and I had this really bad feeling. I was like, something is going down right now. And I sat up in bed and I looked over and the door to my room was wide open. Literally, it was 4:00 in the morning. The door to my room was open. I heard people like yelling outside, and all of the strength that I had in that moment, I got up out of bed and I just went to the door. And what happened was the hotel had given a late arriving businessman the key to my room.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So his items were in my room. The suitcase was there. I was still half asleep. So luckily nothing happened, but it really affected me. And I realized that, of course, it's one thing to have the physical strength if that guy had bad intentions to fight somebody. But I didn't know if I had the mental capacity to stay present and in the moment and focused and calm. And that spoke to me that I need to do something. I would like to do some sort of self-defense. So I got home to New York and I was getting off of the train and I saw this sign in a window that said self-defense $10 trial class. And I'm like, let me go just check it out and see what it is.
Right, is this a sign?
Yeah, right? And I walk in and it was a Taekwondo school. There's a big Korean flag and an American flag. And I was like, oh, I never even considered doing martial arts before. So, but then I thought, you know, if I do this trial class, I'm the type of person that at this stage in my life, I have to become a black belt because I am not going to be one of those people that they join and 2 months later, like, okay, this is too hard. I knew it was going to be hard. And then I always like to say that I remember, you know, it being 2 months later and I was in push-up position, like drenched in sweat thinking, what have I done? You know?
Right.
But that's really how I got started in Taekwondo. And I didn't start competing until I was closer to a black belt. So I'd say around a brown belt. I did my first competition and I did Taekwondo 7 in the competition and I did relatively well. And a year later, someone was like, you should try like the USA Taekwondo, like the state championships. You should try that. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm ready for that, you know, but
Right.
I'll try it. And lo and behold, I ended up, long story short, I went to nationals that year in 2011 in Dallas. And then I ended up winning the red belt gold medal. And after that, I became a black belt. And of course, once you become a black belt, you know, all bets are off. You're, you know, with 1st to 9th degree black belts who've done it since the womb. So it took me many years to even get to a place where I was even competing relatively on a higher level because I started Taekwondo as an adult. I didn't start as a kid.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
I started with all of the adult issues that we have. And, but it became a passion of mine, really. I remember seeing Team M, who recently got the golden buzzer on America's Got Talent. I remember seeing them performing a high level Poomsae. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. It just grabbed me, just kind of like pageants grabbed me, Poomsae grabbed me as well. And then it just was like, I have to do that. I have to.
That's interesting. That's really an interesting story. And that's an interesting concept because for people who get into and fully understand Sport Poomsae, on the presentation side, there's a pageantry that's involved, right? In the expression of your energy and in your performance. And, you know, Grandmaster Raymond Su always says, people don't win national Poomsae or international events on accuracy, right? Because accuracy is always going to be anticipated to be good at that level. It's going to be the presentation that's going to separate the gold from the bronze from the silver. And I never really thought about it in terms of pageants and pageantry, but as you're laying it out, there's to some degree probably some level of symmetry there.
Yeah, absolutely there is. That's really what drew me to it. It was the beauty of it. It was the performance of it. Yes, accuracy. I mean, I was blown away by the accuracy, but that wasn't what got me to the point where I said to myself, I'm going to train every single day and pursue this dream for years. There was just something about it. So yes, that's totally true.
And you're somewhat groundbreaking in the sense that, you know, if the pandemic did anything, it helped to perpetuate Sports Poomsae because people didn't have the ability to train in sparring as much. So all of the tournaments, the online tournaments, they all were directed. But at the time that you were really involved in getting involved in Sport Poomsae, it was really at a time that it was very, very really making a lot of strides. People didn't really fully understand, well, what's Sports Poomsae as opposed to Poomsae and things like that. So you really ended up in a situation where you really are a pioneer in that regard. I don't know if you feel that way, but I mean, from my perspective, that's the way I see it.
That's an interesting thought as well. And I know for New York specifically, apart from a very few people, not a lot of people are at a higher level of Poomsae in the state. Not that they can't be higher level, but it's less likely as opposed to say California.
Sure.
And that's why I had to go to California to train because it didn't have, I didn't have the same amount of training in this state specifically.
I know from the experience of, Alex Tercios.
Yes.
People who are familiar with us know him. He
Yeah.
coaches at our academy, and he's competed. And for years, I know he had similar passion to you. And again, it was a matter of not really having a lot of the resources regionally uh, that he was looking for, and a lot of it was done, as I'm sure it was with you, was done independently. It was done based on his own passion and his own desire to learn more. Now there's tremendous resources are available for the practice and the understanding and the coaching of it. But he had the same issue. He was seeking it out and sort of learning as he went.
Yeah, that's basically what happened with me. And that type of passion really drives you. If you see an obstacle, you just say, okay, I'm just going to go around it. I'm going to find a way to make this work. And I think someone like Alex is always, I mean, although he's younger than me, has been incredibly inspirational to me as well, because he and I do have a similar thought process as it comes to Poomsae and what has drawn us to do that. It's a passion. I mean, that's like the only way I can really describe it on so many levels. And it's driven me to lose sleep and train and,
Sure.
fly all over the country, so.
Right. That's great.
Mhm.
Well, let's flip it forward now. The most recent. I know that you had taken obviously some time off, between the pandemic, but also between becoming a new mom. From
Yeah.
This is not your first pageant. I know you've competed before. So tell us a little bit about your recent coronation. Tell us about how that came to be, and sort of again the history of how you got involved in the pageant world.
It's funny because we are talking about the correlation between pageantry and Poomsae. And actually, when I was young, I was a young kid, I was about 12 or 13, I really wanted to do pageants. And at that time, my mom is now a very big supporter, but she said, absolutely not. This is not for you. This is something that is not good for you. It's almost like a sexist thing.
Sure.
And that's sometimes people will see it like that on the forefront, where they don't really see that we actually, just like with Poomsae, we train for this. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just getting up on stage and walking around. All of us have community service platforms. For me personally, I'm an advocate for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. We could talk
Yeah.
about that later too. But that's also a huge passion of mine. And so I really didn't get involved until I was older. And I've competed 4 times for this title of Mrs. New York America. And I would have to say that my experience in sports and in Taekwondo specifically really propelled me to continue to try to do your best and not give up, especially if you have a dream. And I think that's something that's so wonderful about Taekwondo, especially as it teaches adults and kids alike, that you can't go from point A to point F. You have to go from A to B to C and learn the techniques in each level to progress to that ultimate goal of the black belt. And then, of course, the journey begins. But, I think having had that background really propelled me to continue fighting through, basically. So this is now the 4th time that I competed, and this time I was successful. But it's the journey. It's really the journey that is what you tend to fall in love with. And I'm forever grateful and forever changed by Taekwondo and by pageantry.
That's great. That's great. And when we interviewed, we did a lot of work in 2014 and 15 with Nia Sanchez, who was Miss USA and who was also a black belt, and she had a lot of similar thoughts. Those paths to her were maybe to some people they may see those paths as being very divergent, but for her they were very, very parallel, because she again, it was something that both of them took a tremendous amount of work. Both of them took a lot of learning. She jumped into both of those, similar to you, and each step along the way you learn. And as you said, the reward comes, the accomplishing the accomplishment is a great thing, but it's not an empty gesture. It came from all of that sweat and hard work, and that's true of both of those things. So that is great, and that's a great message for young people who, especially today's day and age, people we want things, and I understand that, and people are impatient, but in order to really be able to get the benefit out of it, you have to work to get there,
Yeah,
and you are changed as a result.
yeah, absolutely. And then in a similar fashion, now earning the crown, now the journey begins. Now the work is going to happen, but you're just in a different mindset, a different frame of mind, and knowing that you did the hard work to get to this point. And of course, there is some, luck involved. I don't think there's a surefire way that,
Sure.
this is going to be the time. Just like with winning the national championships, there's situations that occur, or you get a good draw, or you just have a good day,
Sure.
um,
That's a great point, and that could be the difference. So, and you
yeah,
just enjoy it.
yeah,
Tell us, it's important, and we'll link it, and I'll ask you afterwards to send me links for it. But tell us about the charitable aspect of it, and tell us a little bit about that platform. How you're using the platform to help bring visibility to that, and what anyone who's listening to this on the audio side or watching this on the video side, what they can do to help your cause.
sure. Well, I do want to say that pageantry is a self-development tool. At least that's how I look at it. I look at it as a whole, not just I just wanted the crown. It was the entire aspect. Just like becoming a black belt is not the belt. You are now a person of integrity. You're someone who does not give up. You have, persistence and an indomitable spirit. It's the same type of idea with pageantry. And so for me, my platform is Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And this form of muscular dystrophy was found to be in my family back in 2004. And how we found out is my cousin, who is now in his 20s, was diagnosed with this form of muscular dystrophy, which is actually the most common form of muscular dystrophy diagnosed in children, yet it's still considered a rare disease.
Wow.
And I find that almost crazy, because if it wasn't a rare disease, how many more people would have known about it, have done just a simple genetic test to find out if they were a carrier for it. So in my case, I'm a carrier, which means I can pass it on to a child. I have a very high chance of doing that. So for a really long time, I felt a lot of shame about that. When I was dating my husband, I'm like, at what point in our relationship
Right.
do I
That's
tell you
great.
this? So maybe we're not going to be able to have children at all. And it was very hard. And I finally realized that what's really critical for me is that I live who I am as a person. I live my truth. And by living my truth, hopefully other women that may be carriers that feel a certain way about it, or a carrier for another disease, that there is no shame to it. I think that opens up a dialogue when you're able to put yourself out there and be unafraid. So this form of muscular dystrophy, I've been advocating very strongly for research and funding for the past 4 years, which means I'm actually what's known as an advocacy captain for the state of New York. So I lead a delegation along with another woman who's a mom, actually. Her name is Christine, and she's upstate. We lead a delegation of New York delegates down to Washington, D.C., and we directly speak to our lawmakers about continuing funding, that this remain at the forefront of the research and funding that's being done, like with the FDA and different organizations that need basically millions of dollars to be funded. And the key here is it's not just about facts and figures. My platform is called The Power of Your Story. And that is basically taking the everyday family that may be struggling with this, may have a child with this disease, may know somebody, and we go and we simply tell our story. We tell them, because our lawmakers, if anything, they need to know the human behind these charts and graphs and the research that we need money for. They need to see a face. They need to know that the American people are affected by this, and this is affecting the American family. It's not as known. And that's why I wanted to also be Mrs. New York America, so I can create more awareness about that. And so people that are considering having a family, they can know that genetic testing exists. Sometimes if your insurance doesn't cover it, it can be free. It just depends on the situation. But it's just important that the real everyday person is going down to tell Congress, essentially. And we need both sides of the aisle. This is not a partisan issue. we need Republicans and Democrats to actually work together. But it's a human issue. It's a human issue, and it's completely bipartisan.
That's a great thing. And the one thing we learned during the pandemic, right, is that the disease is not, it certainly is not political, and it's not partisan. So no matter what
Right.
whether you're Republican, Democrat, apolitical, you're equally at
Mhm.
risk of these things. So it's an
Yes.
education issue. So that's great. What we'll do is in our show notes, if you send me whatever links that you want us to use for people to educate themselves or to be able to find out more or get involved, we'll definitely post those. So we
Definitely.
appreciate that. So tell me a little bit about your Taekwondo now. I know, again, with so much going on, I don't know what your current status. Are you currently back to training and competing? Is that something that's in your near or distant future? What do
I
you
think I think it's closer than I care to admit. It's something that I definitely needed that time off because it was years of just,
Sure.
going, and having a baby. But I'm not retired. I've gotten that question before, just like Instagram people messaging, like, "Are you still doing Taekwondo?" I'm like, I think you always do Taekwondo,
Sure.
no matter what your status is. But it's going to be soon. I want to say within this year, I'd like to start coming back. I mean, I'm already training physically because of the pageant, so I just need to sort of focus in and start training again. I would love to be back on the mat.
That's great. That's a great thing. It's a great, and I think there's a dual platform there. So you have the ability to leverage both to be able to
Yeah,
be visible and be a good role model as you are, and be visible to young people and women and
yeah,
for your cause. So
yes,
that's a great thing.
absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about, as we wind down, what is the other obligations of your title? Does that have you doing a lot of traveling throughout the state, or doing those types of things? Is that a relatively a full schedule for you that's mapped out for the year, or is that sort of open-ended in terms of we're in such a strange time that even
I know.
historical things are hard to know what's going on from day to day.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a little bit of both because what's great about, being a Mrs. title holder is you have a life, you have a family, and that's what I
Sure.
love about the Mrs. America organization is that they know that. So that's built into your obligation. However, one of the biggest things that I will be doing, as I just mentioned, is I will be competing at Mrs. America. And that is in November 20th in Las Vegas at the Westgate Hotel and Casino. And that's an obligation that I have is to go and compete there, which is incredibly exciting.
Sure.
But other than that, I'm planning on touring throughout the state, working with Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, which is the patient advocacy nonprofit group that I advocate with. They have something called a Duchenne care center, specific areas and places where they care for this form of muscular dystrophy specifically. And I can't wait just to go meet different people and other appearances too. I want to support also the women that I compete with. They're also local title holders, and they also have community service platforms. So I think just really encouraging, supporting people, my own personal platform, working with the families that I work with, and just continuing to promote positivity and love out there.
That's great. That's great. So as you make the movement towards the Mrs. America pageant, is there
Mhm.
anything that, from a public standpoint, that they can do to support you? I mean, obviously, as time goes, we'll post, where people can see that pageant. But is there any public facing component of that, or is that all done based upon judging and other criteria?
Well, there's something called the Fabulous Face Contest, which will come later on in the year. Right now, the best thing that people can do is to like our Facebook and Instagram pages and check out mrsnyamerica.com, which is the website where you can get all of the information if you're thinking about competing. You can always reach out to me. Our Facebook page, you can find it at Mrs. New York America. You can do a search for that, or Instagram. For my personal page, it's 2021 Mrs. NY America. And we also have a Miss title holder who's a young woman who is not married at this time. She's someone else who's also based in Brooklyn. And then we have our New York American title, who was actually the first runner-up But again, another thing that I love about this system is they give someone who got close and has the chops basically to have a state title and also compete in their own national pageant.
Oh, wow.
So there's many ways to win and just do good in the community
That's
with this
wonderful.
system.
That's wonderful. And if you send me in a follow-up email, just send me the links you want us to use. We'll put all those links in for people to be able to make it easier for them to navigate out to those various sites and do whatever it is that they need to do.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
It's absolutely my pleasure, and I look forward. And the timing is great, especially as for me, nationals approaches. I'll be refereeing at the nationals in San Antonio, so hopefully by the next nationals, maybe we'll see you competing there as well,
Yes.
or appearing. But I look forward to it. I thank you. I thank you for all you. I know that you've been, highly visible in both the martial arts and in public causes. And again, as a healthcare worker, I certainly personally and our community thanks you so much for all that you and the people in your community have done to endure this really, really crazy and difficult time, especially starting here on, coastally in New York. We really, the difficulties of being in the boroughs and dealing in the healthcare system and the stresses on it during the pandemic. So thank you for everything you do, but most especially thank you for that in a truly heartfelt way. There's not enough ways to praise you and thank you for doing that. So, and it's wonderful to see somebody of your caliber and of your character to wear the crown and to represent both Taekwondo, represent New York, and hopefully represent America. This is America.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
again, we are talking to Jessica Fabus Cheng today. She's taken some time out of her busy schedule as a mom, as a Taekwondo practitioner, as a healthcare worker, as Mrs. New York, America, to talk to us. And Jessica, I thank you so much. I really look forward to following, and we'll make sure to follow your journey and to let people know what's going on with you. So thank you, and have a wonderful day, and enjoy the rest of the journey up until, I mean, it's hard to believe we're coming into August, so November's right around the corner for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh my gosh.
You'll do great. You'll do great. And the Taekwondo community will be there supporting you every step of the way.
Thank you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Take care.